Controversy erupts after Confederate crosses were placed at a historic family cemetery in Von Ormy.
Some descendants of people who fought in the Texas Revolution say they were upset when they saw the crosses at their family's gravesite.
And the family reached out to KENS 5, and reporter Mike Jimenez has that story tonight.
I was offended by that because the marker does not honor my relative.
John Moore Jr., great-grandson of Blas Buenaventura Herrera and Sabina Herrera, say the Confederate cross installed at his great-grandparents' gravesite at the Ruiz Herrera Cemetery is a desecration.
One side of the marker says Deo Vindici, which means God will vindicate, which for neo-Confederates, that means that God will vindicate them for the lost cause. And the lost cause was white supremacy and slavery in the South.
The other side of the cross bears the Confederate battle flag,
which in itself it has been a provocative symbol of white supremacy by Southern racists.
A great-niece of the Herreras, Dr. Carmen Tafoya, says the crosses are contrary to what the cemetery was meant to represent. She feels the crosses are a political statement, the opposite of patriotism in the United States. Herrera did serve in the Confederate Army for a short time.
He and the other Mexico Tejanos who took the jobs, many of them because it was the only job they could find in that very desperate economic time period, they were threatened, their lives were threatened by fellow Confederates.
To suddenly install these Confederate crosses is biased, she says, and does not represent the Mexico Tejano experience.
To take just one of those flags, the Confederate one, and to propagate it here gives a very bad message in this time period of rising hate crimes and white supremacist groups.
The Ruiz Herrera Cemetery is run by a board of 3 people. Art Martinez de Vara says the family approved the installation of the crosses through a vote by members of the Cemetery Association and were donated by the Sons of the Confederate Veterans. He says 6 years ago they began a campaign to put markers at all veterans' grave sites.
We can't change our history, and we can't erase it. And so what we're doing here is we're honoring individuals for their service.
De Vara says the crosses are not a political statement. Since this issue has become public, he says most want to keep them.
One of the dangers when you erase history is that you're doomed to repeat it. And so we should remember it, talk about it, teach our kids about it.
De Vara says in a vote today, members voted 28-17 in favor of keeping the crosses. However, he says because most of the opposition came from the Blas Buenaventura Herrera family, they will remove his cross. Mike Jimenez, KENS 5.